This is coming through from, this is with regard to the former MDC leader, Morgan Tsvangirai, and the latest being that he has died. Now, you would have known that he's been in South Africa receiving treatment. He'd been critically ill for some time. And of course, there had been false reports before about the fact that he had died. But now we have received official confirmation tonight that Morgan Tsvangirai has died. Let's take you to our senior political reporter Thulasizwe Simelane, who is at Luthuli House, and of course he's been covering the story of the ANC, the former president of the ANC, Jacob Zuma's removal. But for now, Thulas, perhaps let's talk about the news that we have just received. Morgan Tsvangirai's death, how is that likely to be received by Zimbabweans tonight?
Yeah, absolutely, Kathy. Sad news coming through indeed from Zimbabwe. We must be cautious, of course, because at this particular point we have no communication from the Tsvangirai family, which I think perhaps would be understandable if this indeed is the case, but also I think would be more authoritative than where we are getting this information from. The main source of this news is from one of the three MDC vice presidents, engineer Elias Mutsuri, who was until about a week and a half ago acting president of the MDC. He tweeted, and this is an account that I must point out is not verified, but it is the account that has tweeted the views and opinions of engineer Elias Mutsuri. So we have no reason to doubt it. But it's not verified in terms of the Twitter system. But in any case, it says, as you are aware that our MDCT president, Dr. Morgan Richard Tsvangirai, has been, just excuse me for a moment there, Kathy, something happening while I'm reading that tweet, and I don't want to get it wrong. I want to actually get it precisely what it says. It says, as you are aware that our MDCT president, Dr. Morgan Richard Tsvangirai, has not been feeling well for some time. It is sad for me to announce that we have lost our icon and fighter for democracy. Our thoughts and prayers are with the family, the party, and the nation at this time. So that tweet coming from engineer Elias Mutsuri, who was until about a week and a half ago the acting MDC president. You can only imagine the kind of shock waves this is probably sent in Zimbabwe at the moment. I'm also in communication with fellow journalists in Zimbabwe, and in fact, our own Pindai Dube, our correspondent, confirming it with the leaders, with some of the leaders in the MDC that is led by Morgan Tsvangirai. But of course, we await the official statement. His spokesperson is Luke Tamborinyoka, and I would say that is someone we should be looking to for some kind of official communication, as well as, of course, the acting MDC president, Nelson Chamisa.
Before I let you go, let's talk a little bit about Tsvangirai. Of course, we're told that he'd been battling colon cancer for the past 2 years, but his health really deteriorating and affecting the extent to which he could continue to galvanize the opposition in Zimbabwe.
It really has. His condition has been deteriorating, much of the time being spent with him here in South Africa receiving treatment over the past few months. I mean, what can be said about Morgan Tsvangirai? I guess the main thing that comes to mind is the words of Tendai Biti, who now, of course, leads his own political party, but who was for some time the Secretary General of the MDC, who said in one of the interviews we did just recently with Pindai Dube, that Morgan Tsvangirai, there's one thing you can't take away from him, the fact that he was the first one to stand up and look the beast in the eye at the point at which there were attempts to create a one-party state in Zimbabwe with Robert Mugabe as life president very early on. I mean, you go back to his time in the trade unions when he was a mine worker in the town of Bindura. When he started getting involved in the trade unions, and very interestingly, at one particular point, he was a member of ZANU-PF, believe it or not, and actually idolized Robert Mugabe. But with time, he started having misgivings about the leadership and the direction in which the country was headed. So Tendai Biti is saying that whatever weaknesses you may have observed in his leadership, and whatever disagreements you may have had with his politics, you simply cannot take away from the magnitude of what he did. Looking ZANU-PF in the eye, looking Robert Mugabe in the eye, someone that he had idolized, and said, actually, it is not correct to be in the state that we are in as Zimbabwe. And I guess that really sums up Morgan Tsvangirai, a man who took serious battering, quite physically, in terms of what, the violence that was meted out to him by the state, by various people in the cause of pursuing this struggle for a democratic Zimbabwe, made mistakes, absolutely, no question about it. The MDC did not go through all those splits without him being in some kind of way involved in those politics that led to the splits. So he had his weaknesses, but also you really cannot take away from what he did and the genuineness of his beliefs in a better Zimbabwe. I walked a few steps behind Morgan Tsvangirai for some time as a correspondent in Zimbabwe, and I can tell you that I found his commitment to be genuine. There were times when, of course, he would be labeled a puppet of the West, but even the people who were his enemies over time, it became clear that it's impossible to build a better Zimbabwe without partnering with Morgan Tsvangirai, whatever the differences may be politically.
All right, Thulas, thank you so much for that. And of course, we'll allow you a moment to also try and work your sources in Zimbabwe to bring us more on the story. It's breaking. MDC leader Morgan Tsvangirai succumbing to cancer at a Johannesburg hospital tonight.